Okay, I want you to picture something for me. Imagine you've gone out and you've bought a Ferrari. It's sleek, it's powerful, it is incredibly expensive. But there's a catch, a really big, annoying catch.
Hmm.
You're only allowed to drive it on, say, every third Sunday of the month.
That sounds like a terrible, terrible investment.
It gets worse the rest of the time. It just sits in your driveway.
Mm-hmm.
But you still have to pay the insurance. You still have to pay for the premium maintenance. You still got to wash it, keep it shiny. It's just sitting there burning cash.
And that is the classic economic headache of the modern sports stadium. It is a high fixed cost asset that historically just sits dormant the vast majority of the time, the very definition of a white elephant.
Exactly. But today, we're flipping that script. We're looking at a venue that is actively trying to solve that exact problem. We are doing a deep dive into Eden Park, New Zealand's national stadium.
Yeah.
We've got the annual report for the financial year ending October 31st, 2025, the chairman's speech, and the official media statement. And our mission today is to figure out how you take this massive physical asset, I mean, it's basically a giant concrete bowl, and turn it into a money-making machine.
We're going to look past the floodlights and the grass and really understand how a venue like this survives the inherent variability of sports schedules. We're exploring how a stadium stops being just a stadium and starts being something else entirely.
A Swiss Army knife of entertainment, maybe.
That is a very, very apt description. A Swiss Army knife that somehow includes monster trucks and hot tubs.
I have to be honest, when I was reading through the source materials and I saw hot spring spa pools and monster trucks, I just thought, this is not my grandfather's rugby ground anymore.
It certainly isn't. But underneath all the fun stuff, which I know you love, there is some serious disciplined economic strategy going on here. This isn't just throwing ideas at a wall. It's a very calculated move to diversify revenue.
So let's unpack this, because usually when we look at stadium annual reports, it's a lot of red ink, or, it's a celebration just to break even. But the numbers for the 2025 financial year for Eden Park they look surprisingly robust.
They're very robust. The headline number that jumps out immediately is the net operating profit. Now, just to be clear for everyone listening, this is before we account for things like interest and depreciation. It's really about the cash the business generates from its day-to-day operations.
And what's the number?
For 2025, that number is $4.864 million.
Okay, so nearly $5 million. In the context of a major stadium, is that actually good, or is that just, I don't know?
Oh, it's significantly better than, okay. Context is everything here. If you compare it to the previous year, 2024, the profit was $3.678 million. So they've managed to jump by over $1 million in profit in a single year.
Wow.
That's a massive percentage increase for a mature business like Eden Park.
Right. And I saw another metric in the report, something called adjusted net operating profit. What's the difference there? Why do we need an adjusted number? Is that just, creative accounting?
No, it's actually about clarity. In accounting, especially the property, you often have these non-cash items like the value of your property going up or down on paper. The adjusted figure just strips those minor valuation movements out to give you a clearer picture of the actual trading performance.
And what does that picture look like?
Even rosier. It's $4.964 million, up from $3.224 million the year before.
That is a huge leap, almost a 50% increase in the adjusted profit. So what's driving that? Did they just jack up all the ticket prices?
It's rarely that simple. If you just raise prices, you risk losing fans. The CEO, Nick Sautner, he points to two specific things: operational discipline and cost management.
Which sounds a bit like corporate speak. Can you translate that for us?
It means they're getting much, much better at controlling the cost of just opening the doors. Think about it. Every time you open a stadium, it costs a fortune. Security, cleaning, electricity, staffing.
Traffic management?
All of it. So if you can control those variable costs while driving up revenue, your profit margin expands. But what's really fascinating to me is the context in which they achieved this.
What do you mean?
The report makes a point of saying they achieved this result under their current planning and resource consent settings.
Ah, right.
Right.
Because stadiums have rules they have to follow. They can't just host a heavy metal concert at 3 in the morning on a Tuesday.
Exactly. They have strict rules about how many night events they can hold, noise limits, all of that. So to generate nearly $5 million in operating profit while essentially fighting with one hand tied behind their back, it just proves the underlying business model is incredibly efficient.
They haven't even unlocked its full potential yet.
Not even close.
And that really brings us to the core argument of this entire report. I think the days of the pure sports stadium are just over. The report explicitly says variability is inherent in our model.
That's the polite way of saying we can't rely on the team winning to pay our bills.
Right. If you're a stadium that only cares about rugby, you're at the mercy of the draw. Maybe you get a blockbuster test match, or maybe you get a rainy Tuesday night against a team nobody really wants to watch.
Or maybe the home team just has a bad season and attendance drops off a cliff. You can't build a sustainable business model on the assumption your team will always be popular.
So the solution has to be diversification. You have to fill all those gaps in the calendar.
Precisely. They're shifting the identity from rugby ground to multi-purpose national stadium. And this is where we get into your favorite part of the report.
The weird stuff. I love the weird stuff because it shows such a shift in thinking. The report lists things that, 10 years ago would have been laughed out of the boardroom. Let's talk about stadium glamping.
I do appreciate the pun. Stadium. Oh,
It's literally luxury camping. Inside the stadium, you wake up in a glamping tent overlooking the pitch. It sounds insane, but people must love it.
it might sound gimmicky, but think about the asset utilization. That pitch sits there all night, usually doing nothing. If you can monetize the view of the pitch while everyone else is at home, that's just found money. It turns a dormant time frame into revenue.
Then there's G9 Stadium Golf.
This one is clever. You tee off from the stands, right? Aiming for targets on the grass.
Exactly. You play a 9-hole course without ever leaving the stadium bowl. And then art in the park, turning the venue into a massive gallery. But the one that really caught my eye and the media release specifically highlights this was Hot Wheels monster trucks.
Now, I know you want to talk about this because it sounds cool.
I absolutely would buy a ticket to watch a monster truck do a backflip. I don't care who you are, that is entertainment.
It is, but look at it from a strategic demographic perspective. Who goes to a rugby match? Traditionally, it's a specific demographic, often older, often male, though that is changing. Who goes to monster trucks?
Families, kids, people who might never care about a scrum or a line out in their entire lives.
Correct. It brings a completely different socioeconomic slice of the population into the building. It gets them used to coming to Eden Park. It captures their data. It broadens the customer base, so the stadium isn't just reliant on the rugby crowd. It de-risks the business.
It's funneling new people into the whole ecosystem. But we have to be real here. Glamping and monster trucks are great, but they aren't generating that $5 million in profit all on their own, are they? We have to talk about the heavy hitters, the mega events.
The scale of these events is just staggering. The report highlights Coldplay specifically.
The numbers are mind-boggling. 160,000 fans.
Over 3 sold-out concerts. That is a massive operational undertaking.
And the source says they were the first artists to ever perform 3 consecutive shows there. That's history being made. That's not just a concert, it's a cultural phenomenon.
It is. And then in January 2025, they had Luke Combs.
The country singer, which again is a totally different demographic from Coldplay and totally different from the All Blacks. It really does speak to that Swiss Army knife idea.
Yes. And the report makes a very specific point about these concerts. It notes that they drove peak hotel occupancy and visitor spending in Auckland. This connects to the bigger economic picture. A stadium is not an island.
Right. When 160,000 people show up for Coldplay, they don't just beam into the stadium and beam out like Star Trek. They need to eat. They need to sleep. They need Ubers.
The chairman, Simon Bridges, actually quantified this in his speech. He noted that since 2011, the stadium has contributed over $1 billion in GDP benefits to the region.
$1 billion.
For $1 billion. The quote is, "When Eden Park is busy, the city benefits. It ripples out to hospitality, retail, transport, and this is actually a crucial political point."
How so?
Well, remember those resource constraints we mentioned, the noise complaints. If you want the city to let you hold more concerts, you have to prove that you're paying the city back in economic growth. You have to show that the inconvenience of the traffic is worth $1 billion in GDP.
That makes sense. It's the license to operate. You buy goodwill with economic impact. If I own a restaurant down the street, I'm probably loving the noise because it sounds like cash registers ringing.
Exactly.
So we've got the monster trucks, we've got the rock stars, and the glamping. But we cannot talk about Eden Park without talking about the bread and butter. The reason the concrete was poured in the first place.
The fortress.
The fortress. Because for all the diversification, the brand of Eden Park is still totally anchored in rugby. And there's one stat in this report that I had to read it twice.
I think I know the one you mean, the streak.
The streak. In this financial year, the All Blacks extended their unbeaten record at Eden Park to 52 consecutive test matches. That spans more than 3 decades. I'm trying to think of a comparison. Is there anything else like that in professional sports? A home venue where the national team simply does not lose.
In international rugby, no, it's completely unmatched. Anywhere in the world, it's statistically an anomaly. You look at other great sports fortresses, and eventually, everyone loses. But at this point, it's become a psychological weapon.
It has to be, right?
Absolutely. Opposing teams turn up there almost expecting to lose. The ghosts of the stadium are playing against them. The architecture, the crowd noise, the history, it all weighs on them.
And they defended it this year against South Africa in the Freedom Cup. I mean, South Africa, the world champions, that must have been a tense day for the board. Imagine being the chairman when the streak finally ends.
I imagine the relief was palpable in the boardroom when that final whistle blew. That record is a huge part of the brand equity.
It really is. But they also hosted a one-off international between Manu Samoa and Scotland.
Which is cool, hosting neutral games. It shows they can draw a crowd even when the home team isn't playing.
And of course, all the domestic leagues. Cricket, football, Super Rugby Pacific, and Super Rugby Opiki.
It's a packed calendar. But here's the takeaway for me on the sports side. They need Coldplay and monster trucks to make the big money, but they need the All Blacks to keep the soul of a place. It's a very delicate balance, isn't it?
It is. If you go too far towards entertainment, you alienate your core fans, the rugby traditionalists. But if you stick only to rugby, you go broke. And looking at these documents, it seems they've found a way to make them coexist. The chairman calls it being the home of rugby and a world-class entertainment venue.
Respecting the past while paying for the future.
Speaking of the future, business doesn't stand still. The report talks about something called Eden Park 2.1. What is that? A software update?
In a way, yes, but for hardware. This is their future-proofing strategy. You see, a stadium is a depreciating asset. It gets old, the concrete cracks, the seats fade. If you just let it sit, it degrades. Eden Park 2.1 is a staged redevelopment plan to modernize the facility.
And we're already seeing pieces of it. The sources mentioned the Lower West Stand.
Yes, and the redevelopment there is interesting because it really highlights a shift in how we watch sports. It's not just about cramming in more plastic seats to get the capacity number up.
This is where the hot tubs come back in. I knew we'd get back to the hot tubs.
It is. They introduced hot spring spa pools, a kids zone, and sideline bars.
See, that changes the experience completely. It's acknowledging that not everyone wants to just sit shoulder to shoulder eating a cold pie anymore.
It's called premiumization. You take a certain amount of square footage, and instead of selling a standard ticket for $50, you create an experience you can sell for $500 or $1,000, or you create a space that attracts a big sponsor.
And you can do that with a spa pool.
Apparently so. The chairman's speech mentions that this upgrade provided greater flexibility and proximity to the action. It's acknowledging modern fans want different things. Some want to analyze tactics, some want to stand at a bar, and apparently some want to be in a spa pool.
I'm telling you, spa pools are the future of sports viewing. But seriously, this costs money. These upgrades aren't cheap. Where is this heading?
The goal, according to the report, is long-term sustainability. They are actively engaging with central and local government on the business case for further development. They want to ensure the stadium serves future generations. They're essentially arguing the stadium is a piece of national infrastructure, like a highway or an airport, and it needs investment to stay relevant.
Which brings us to the people running this show. We mentioned Simon Bridges, the chairman who gave this speech.
Yes, the former politician. He's the current chair, but the AGM notes also pay a lot of tribute to Karen Smith.
She's a former chair, right?
Correct. She served as chair through this 2025 financial year and is now the deputy chair. The speech credits her with guiding the board through this period of high activity and financial resilience. It seems like a very stable governance transition, which is crucial.
You don't want the leadership changing every 6 months when you're trying to build Eden Park 2.1.
Exactly.
And then there's the CEO, Nick Sotner. He seems to be the guy really pushing that creative envelope.
The board explicitly praises his creativity and operational excellence. You get the sense that the Swiss Army knife strategy, the monster trucks, the golf, the focus on utilization, that's very much his vision in action.
One thing that stood out to me in the chairman's speech was the language he used. They don't just call themselves a business, they call it a community asset.
That is a crucial distinction. Eden Park is a trust. It's not a standard corporation solely focused on pumping out dividends for shareholders.
So there are no shareholders demanding a quarterly payout.
No. That profit we talked about earlier, it goes back into the asset, into the upgrades, the maintenance, the community programs. The report mentions a focus on charity events, school activities, keeping the venue accessible.
Yeah, things like local cultural celebrations and fundraisers. It's smart strategically because, as we touched on, Eden Park isn't in some industrial wasteland. It's right in the middle of a residential suburb.
Exactly. It has neighbors, literal neighbors who can hear the crowd roar.
And if you are a giant noisy neighbor, you need the people living next door to like you, or at least tolerate you.
Being a good neighbor is part of that license to operate. If the community feels like the stadium belongs to them, that they can go there for a market or a charity run on a Tuesday, not just a $200 concert on a Saturday, they're more likely to support you.
It all ties back together. The community support allows the events drive the profit funds the upgrades, and the upgrades keep the stadium relevant.
It is a virtuous cycle, but it's a fragile one. It relies on that operational discipline we started with. If you lose control of your costs or if you annoy the neighbors too much, the whole flywheel stops spinning.
So let's wrap this up. We've covered a lot. FY 2025 was a landmark year for Eden Park.
Financially, it was excellent. Nearly $5 million in operating profit, proving the business model works even with restrictions.
Culturally, it was huge. Coldplay, Luke Combs, and the All Blacks, extending that streak to 52 games. It showed the venue can handle the biggest pop stars and the most intense sporting pressure in the world.
And strategically, it validated the diversification model. It proved you can do golf on the pitch and monster trucks without ruining the turf for the rugby.
It really is a lesson in asset utilization. I think that's a phrase you used earlier.
Yes, a stadium cannot survive as a monument. Monuments are expensive, they're static, they gather dust. A modern stadium must be an active participant in the economy 365 days a year. It has to sweat the asset.
And that's what makes this Eden Park 2.1 concept so interesting. The sources say they need further investment to keep this momentum going.
Which raises a provocative thought for me.
Go on.
If a stadium can host golf and glamping and spa pools and art galleries and monster trucks, what is the limit?
Right. At what point does it stop being a stadium?
Exactly. In 10 years, will we even call them stadiums? Or will they be entertainment cities that just happen to have a patch of grass in the middle? Will the sports team just be one tenant among dozens?
That is a fascinating thought. Maybe in 2035, the rugby will just be the sideshow to the massive theme park that surrounds it.
I wouldn't go that far, not with the All Blacks record on the line. I think the rugby will always be the heart, but the body surrounding that heart is going to look very, very different.
Well, next time you drive past your local stadium, don't just look at the empty stands. Imagine the hot tubs that could be there.
Or the glamping tents.
Or the glamping tents. Thanks for listening to this deep dive into Eden Park. We'll catch you on the next one.